me to take your shoe off and scratch your toe for you, maybe then I would have the authority to do that. Prior to you begging me to take your shoe off, I try touching your property, you can kick me in the teeth. We transfer authority if that authority doesn't already exist when we apply. And finally, because you are a human being and no one's ever obliged to beg, it's an entirely voluntary action. You can never claim, oh, they made me apply. No one has ever made you apply for anything. Submission. Submission is their other tricky little definition. It means to agree to bend to another's will or to leave to another's discretion. If you are agreeing to bend to someone's will, you are in contract with them. And again, in order for it to be voluntary or lawful, it has to be voluntary. If you are agreeing to leave something to someone's discretion, in order for you to legally leave something, you must have possession and ownership of it. Again, you're abandoning it, and that's an entirely voluntary action. They get all their power when you put your signature, which is evidence of an oath, on a document with the words registration, application, submission. They do it with everything. You want to register your kids? What are you going to do? You're submitting an application for registration. You want to register your vehicle with the motor vehicle branch? You're submitting application for registration. You want to register your real property? Submitting application for registration every time. And that's why the lawyers got it. They're in all the power. You came to them and begged. Next one, please. A lot of people here are familiar with the natural person concept, and people have been using it. I'm here to tell you I don't think you should use the word natural person at all. If you look at the definition of natural person, it tells you a natural person is a human being who has the capacity for rights and duties. If you tell me that you have the capacity for rights and duties and I'm a government agent, you label yourself as a natural person, a human being with the capacity for rights and duties, who am I to deny you your rights and duties? In Canada, the moment you define yourself as a natural person, they have an obligation to give you your rights and duties. Imagine you're going up to a bar, you got say a pint glass. You go up and you say, hi, boom, you're presenting your beer. They then top it up because you've got a right to present it. Once you do that, they have a duty to top it. When you call yourself a natural person, you're presenting your empty beer, you're telling them top it up. There's a very big difference between being a human being who has the capacity for rights and duties and a human being who has the ability to choose to have the capacity for rights and duties. We want to be the ones who choose. It's the difference between walking up to the bar with your pint glass upside down and they can't pour anything in it. And they say, turn your glass over. No, I don't want your stinky beer. Next one. Common law right to travel. Well, a lot of the things that they get us with, they've got us believing that in order for us to exercise some of our most fundamental human rights, we have to engage in contract with them. We want a license. We have to go submit an application for a license. What's going on? Fact is, you have the common law right to travel. You can get out on that highway in a privately owned automobile, travel from point A to point B. As long as you're not engaging in commerce on the highway, there is not one thing unlawful about it. I have audio tape somewhere I got to find of a head lawyer in ICBC. I asked him flat out. I said, is there anyone in your organization with a bar card who's willing to swear under oath and on their full commercial liability that the common law right to travel no longer exists in British Columbia? His response was, no, it's there. And you give it up every time you go and you register your motor vehicle. You are not obliged to register your motor vehicle. If you do, you're signing over partial ownership of it to the state. They use a lot of trickiness with it. If you look at the Motor Vehicle Act, they define a motor vehicle. They'll say motor vehicle, in brackets, means a vehicle not run on rails designed to be self-propelled, yada, yada, yada. The brackets, what I found out, when it's in quotation marks, that means these words, these printed words. Anytime you see these printed words in this act, you know it is referring to something that has these attributes. Where does it say all things with those attributes are being referred to? It doesn't. If I define an apple as a round red fruit, does that mean all round red fruits are apples? No, you got cherries, pomegranates, certain varieties of the more exotic Asian pears. All of these are red grounded fruits, and they're not apples. When they define a motor vehicle, they don't give you the full and complete definition. There are other attributes they've left out. And you will find those attributes further in the Act if you get to Section 3.1 of the Motor Vehicle Act. It says, the owner of the motor vehicle must apply for and receive registration and insurance in the form required by ICBC. That's the missing attribute. The moment you do that, yes, now your property is a motor vehicle, and there's no one in ICBC going to claim that you have an obligation to register your personal property. No one. This is one of the most fundamental things we have to remember, folks. Equality before the law is paramount. Everything else is gravy. No matter who you're dealing with, government agents, police officers, judges, we're all human beings in a common law jurisdiction. We are all equal. Every time you write to them, now you'll notice a bunch of my letters, I put that right up at the top. That's where we're starting at. Everything else doesn't matter. And if they don't want to accept that concept, that then they and I are equal, I don't want anything to do with them. They're crazy. They're crazy in the head. I don't want to play with them. And then finally, the big monkey. Who here has ever read their Bill of Rights? Who here remembers the very first sentence? Oh, it's key. It's the big monkey they're hiding. It says, and you'll find it expressed in the Constitution as well, they say that Canada is a nation founded upon the principles and the belief in the principles of the supremacy of God and the rule of law. The supremacy of God and the rule of law. I went to my MP's office and I asked him, I said, yeah, I'd like the Bill of Rights. I grabbed this, they'll give you one. It's really nice, you can frame it, eh? I said, wow, it says here Canada's a nation founded upon the principles or the belief in the principles of the supremacy of God. Is that true? She said, sure is. I said, that's cool. I said, this tells me there's a hierarchy and God's right up at the very top. Is that true too? She said, I sure hope so. I said, me too. Who's number two? She's like, I don't know. Maybe you should see a lawyer. I was like, why should I see a lawyer when you're the one saying, I don't know? I'm pretty sure this is an offer. Where do I accept it? The fact is, they've laid out a thing for you. Have you ever played Snakes and Ladders? Imagine Snakes and Ladders where the only way to win this game is to never even pick up the dice. Right at the start, there's one ladder leading right to the win, and that's the only way to get there. Your Bill of Rights, the very first section, if you look at that as an offer and you accept it, you put yourself legally in a position where in this hierarchy they have designed you are number two to God. If they want any power over you, they've got to do one of four things. They've got to claim and then prove that they exist above God. They've got to claim and then prove they are God. They've got to claim and then prove that somehow they exist between you and God. Or they can produce a document upon the face of which can be found the verifiable signature of one deity commonly known as God. And if they can't do that, they have no claim to power. They have nothing. And here's the beautiful thing. They don't even bother defining God. How can they? God isn't defined. God can be a 5-week-old tuna sandwich in the back of your fridge. You decided to personify and deify by calling God, God, my godly tuna sandwich. And if you're happy being number two to a tuna sandwich, you can do that. I want to be number two to the creator of the universe. But if you want to be number two to the tuna sandwich, you can go ahead. You have every right in the world to stand right up and claim the status of a child of God. But the moment you do that, you do accept a lot of responsibility because then you have to look at everyone else with the same eyes. You guys having fun yet? Tell you a little story. Who here doesn't like dealing with income tax people? I went down there to income tax. I was looking for my GST rebate check. I went in there. Very true story. I said, yeah, I'm here for my GST rebate. She said, oh, well, what's your social insurance number? I gave it. She punches it in. I'm sitting right here. She's like this. She looks. You haven't filed your taxes for 5 years. I said, really? I thought it was more like 7. She didn't like that.